Gaijin Entertainment presents The Shooting Range. You're watching The Shooting Range, a weekly show for old tankers, airmen, and aspiring captains in War Thunder. In this episode, a gentleman's favorite pastime, bomb skipping. Shark mouths, Donald Duck, and beautiful women. Let's talk about nose art. Hotline, the developers answer questions that you left in the comments. But first, let's start with a DIY plane, the Douglas A-20 Havoc. When it came to aviation technology in the second part of the 1930s, the world was progressing at great speed. The designs that were conceived in 1936 were considered grossly outdated just 5 years later. But to every rule there is an exception. While other bombers came and went, the A-20, company designation DB-7, stayed, and for a good reason. Originally, the United States Air Force's top brass didn't care much for the Jack Northrop's new project, a typical monoplane light bomber with a couple of 9-cylinder, air-cooled, radial engines and a decent bomb load. That was nothing special. Planes like this were a dime a dozen. But Northrop didn't want to give up. He kept on upgrading the design. His team reworked its flight dynamics, outfitted the plane with a more powerful 14-cylinder engines, and top-notch communications and signal equipment. Alas, even after the upgraded aircraft took it to the skies in 1938, the military remained unconvinced. For them, it was just a plane, nothing of note. Everything changed in 1940 when France and the Netherlands found themselves in a dire need of decent combat aircraft. They were quick to choose the Northrop's design. The reasoning was simple. His aircraft was already free of most of its teething problems. It was rather sturdy, easy to maintain, and what's importantly, easy to fly. It could also fulfill a multitude of roles. At the same time, it had a rather progressive construction design. It boasted an enclosed cabin, retractable gear, stressed skin, and most importantly, a pair of powerful radial engines that allowed it to reach the speed of 310 miles an hour, or 500 kilometers an hour. The American decision-makers were quick to realize that their European counterparts were no fools, and the US Air Force adopted the plane as well. They were in for a big and a pleasant surprise. Basically, in 1936, Douglas engineers managed to create a design that was perfect for the realities of a conflict that was only brewing. After the States entered the war, the DB-7 didn't just deliver. It turned out to be a true jack-of-all-trades. Need a heavy attack bomber? Alright, replace the greenhouse glass nose with a solid nose cone, install an assortment of guns, throw in a few bazooka rocket launchers, and you're ready to go. Need a long-range torpedo bomber? A piece of cake. Just tinker with the plane a bit so it can carry external torpedoes. A few modifications and the A-20 could do almost anything. But all of that was just child's play compared to what the Soviet mechanics did to the aircraft. In the US, DB-7s were modified and rebuilt in an orderly fashion on the factory floor. In the USSR, amidst all the fighting, well, ain't nobody got time for that. The Soviet units were getting thousands of these planes as a part of the Lend-Lease program, and the Soviet tinkerers quickly saw the true nature of this aircraft. They treated it accordingly, as a kind of a flying construction toy. The madness stopped only in 1944, when the Douglas Aircraft Company stopped the production of the A-20 in favor of the A-26. Even after the war was over, these stubborn bombers kept on flying as firefighting aircraft, platforms for aerial photography, air freighters, even as flying limos of some description, and they kept returning to the skies again and again, until they were completely worn out. It's great when your plane is tough and dependable, but what about its looks? Nose art is a decorative painting on the fuselage of an aircraft, a kind of a sophisticated graffiti. The stress is on decorative. We're not talking about flags or other official signs that serve purely a practical purpose and help identify friendly units. Nose art was one of the ways the crew of the pilot of an aircraft could express their individuality. In some cases, it could be used for intimidation, yes, but that was mostly all about evoking memories of peacetime life, boosting morale, and overcoming the fear of death. It's no coincidence that many of these paintings are quite funny to look at. Placing decorations on fighting aircraft began more than 100 years ago, with German and Italian pilots of World War I era. A well-known example of the nose art of that time is the prancing horse of the Italian ace Francesco Baracca. This horse later inspired the famous Ferrari emblem. But the golden age of nose art is World War II. Almost everybody did it, to some extent, but it was especially popular in the US Air Force. American pilots didn't shy away from even recruiting Disney animators to the cause, and artists were happy to lend a helping hand. Among the most popular designs were, quite naturally, the depictions of scantily clad women. Pin-up girls, Hollywood stars, girlfriends. Sometimes they even lent their names to the aircraft they were painted on. Another popular option was to draw a caricature or display a slogan showing contempt to the enemy, especially to enemy leaders. Cartoon characters were also a solid choice, and interestingly enough, not only when it came to American planes. For instance, one of the most well-known Mickey Mouse nose art paintings was displayed on the Bf-109 of Adolf Galland, a German ace pilot. And you can't really explain nose art without mentioning Shark Mouse, truly the calling card of the genre. It is believed that the modern Shark Mouse first appeared on the German Bf-110s. The pilots of the Soviet Air Force were no strangers to nose art as well, but in most cases they preferred to decorate the aircraft with simpler paintings, names, or patriotic slogans. Sadly, in our day such colorful markings are fairly uncommon. In many air forces of the world, nose art is simply banned. No more pin-up women on your combat aircraft, guys. And now get ready for some trick shots. We're going to try something spectacular. Believe it or not, but that was an actual bombing technique. The idea is simple. You have to drop a bomb in such a way that it would skip over the surface of the water and then bounce into the target of your choice. Or bounce over that target and miss. That happens too. Got it? Then let's sink some boats. We take the good old TBD, set our bombs to the assault fuse, and then set off in the general direction of our target. We drop the small bombs right away, and they won't make much of a difference anyhow. Now the only thing we're left with is a magnificent 500-pound bomb. We build up some speed in a dive, get closer to the enemy vessel, and when we're at approximately 500 meters to the target, level off and drop our stone. It starts to bounce and doesn't quite make it. Well, practice makes perfect. We do it again, and this time it works like a charm. What a shot! The enemy is down. But what if we make it a little bit more challenging? Let's set the fuse to 3 seconds and also position the target in a way that it would require our bomb to bounce over that rock. Here we go. We dive at a slightly sharper angle to make the bomb bounce higher. Here it goes. Perfect! It lands right on top of the enemy ship. Okay, but what about bouncing the bomb over a stretch of land with a few buildings on it? Easy peasy. Another win for our team. Clearly, all of that wasn't enough. Let's try to get 2 ships at once from a distance of 1 kilometer. And with this huge obstacle in our bombs' way. Think that's impossible? To be honest, that's exactly what we thought after we had tried to do it a first dozen times. But then, gotcha! We're in a dive. The bomb drops, it bounces off the surface, flies over the rock, bounces a few times more, and then sinks both ships. Impressive? You bet. Now wait for the next test of the naval forces and try it yourself. Finally, it is time for the traditional last part of our show, Hotline, developers answering questions from the comments. Strictly speaking, it's not the most serious-minded section of the show. If you want answers to be given with solemn faces, feel free to appeal to the official forums. Here we'll have a more lighthearted discussion of the big questions of War Thunder. We hope you like it. Skyflyer writes, please read this, Gaijin. Do you think you will increase performance on older computers? I only have a 7-year-old MacBook that actually worked for a long while. Since then, I have not been able to play for well over a year because the game won't run properly. I still follow all game news as best I can, but I cannot play the game I love. Hey man, we're sorry to hear about your problem, but our team actually works really hard to keep the requirements low while also constantly tweaking the way game systems work and improving the looks of the game. Optimization is one of our top priorities, but there's still a limit to what we can do. The second question comes from a player called PM1225. The bomber cockpits look a bit bland. Will there be a detail update to this wonderful addition? Yeah, sure. A lot of these are early versions or actually placeholders. Still a lot of work to do. Best of Shooter Games writes, ships are in closed beta test right now. What do you mean? I bought the PT-109 but I cannot play it? You absolutely can play Naval Forces, it's just that the game sessions for the first testing stage are available only in special events at specific times, several times a week. Please take a look at the schedule that we have on our website. And then there's the message from a player called Jans Dames. I wish all tank committers, ship captains, pilots, and devs of War Thunder a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thanks, bud. Happy holidays to you as well. This is it for the day, but feel free to write your questions in the comments below. We do read them all, and you might see some of them answered in the next episode. If you like what we're doing, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you on the shooting range.